Consider the man who builds his palace stone by stone, each marble column a testament to his conquests, each gilded arch whispering of empires subdued. His vaults overflow with treasures that would make kings weep, yet he lies awake in the silent hours, clutching a golden cup that cannot hold what he truly thirsts for. What strange alchemy transforms the weight of coins into the lightness of meaning? What cruel joke makes a soul feel most impoverished when surrounded by the spoils of relentless ambition? I once watched a maple tree shed its leaves outside the window of a penthouse where a billionaire wept. The man had flown me there to discuss philosophy, though what he truly sought was a salve for his invisible wounds. "I've won every game," he confessed, his hands trembling around a whiskey glass, worth more than most earn in a month. "Yet I keep waiting to feel like I've arrived somewhere real." The autumn leaves fell with more purpose that day than either of us could muster. Nature's quiet rebuke to our human obsession with accumulation. In that moment, I understood what Seneca meant when he wrote that poverty is not having little, but needing more while possessing everything. We mistake the map for the territory when we conflate wealth with worth. A bank statement measures nothing but numbers obedient to market winds. It cannot tally the courage to face loss with equanimity, nor quantify the wisdom to discern between want and need. The true ledger of a life resides elsewhere, in the strength of one's character when fortunes crumble, in the capacity to find richness in restraint. Recall the last time you stood before some coveted object, a faster car, a larger home, a title promising superiority. Now remember the morning you helped a stranger lift fallen groceries, or the night you comforted a friend without uttering a word. Which of these moments left your soul feeling substantial? Ambition makes a dangerous compass. It whispers that happiness lies just beyond the next milestone, the promotion, the millionth dollar, the social media following. Yet each conquest only shifts the horizon farther away, like a child chasing sunset's edge across a field. I learned this through my own years of hunger, rising before dawn to grind at work others called noble, but felt increasingly hollow. The day my father died clutching a corporate award instead of my hand, I finally heard Epictetus' warning, "No man ever lost a thing that belonged to him." Our grip on externals was always illusion. The Stoic path demands we build our citadel inward. Picture a warrior not of sword and shield, but of perception and intent. His battlefield is the space between stimulus and response. His victory lies in seeing fortune's wheel as neither good nor evil, but raw material for virtue's expression. When loss comes, and it will come, he does not rage against the storm. He becomes the blacksmith tempering steel in its flames. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire from war camps, yet his meditations obsess not over legions or lands, but over maintaining sovereignty where it truly matters. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Modern temples to ambition crumble under their own weight. Glass towers housing hollow-eyed strivers, stock tickers feeding perpetual anxiety, the cold arithmetic of social metrics reducing human worth to algorithms. Yet in every age, the antidote remains the same: the radical choice to define wealth as what cannot be taken. Your integrity when tempted, your compassion when wronged, your gratitude amidst lack. The trader who masters his greed owns more than the billionaire enslaved by appetite. Do not confuse this with resignation. The Stoic pursues excellence vigorously, but anchors her worth in the pursuit itself rather than its fruits. She tends her garden whether rain comes or withholds, finding equal value in the labor. I've seen this wisdom in a fisherman mending nets at dawn, his face calm as the tide. A man with little who lacks nothing. His treasure is the salt-hardened hands that work, the mind unburdened by envy's arithmetic. When storms wreck his catch, he adapts. When seas abound, he shares. True abundance grows from recognizing life's ephemeral nature. That child's laughter echoing through your kitchen will fade. Those strong limbs that climb corporate ladders will weaken. The prestige you accumulate becomes someone else's footnote. What remains is the residue of how you lived, the courage to love despite loss, the choice to act justly when cheating would profit, the discipline to want exactly what you already have. Wealth, stripped to its essence, is the capacity to face reality without flinching or fantasy. So let us measure differently. When your last hour comes, As it came for my father, as it comes for all. No one will ask the balance of your accounts. They'll weigh the contents of your character. Did you master fear? Cultivate wisdom. Leave others stronger than you found them. These are the currencies that outlive empires. The marketplace will always clamor for more, but your soul's economy thrives on less complaint, less craving, less dependence on fortune's fickle nods. Build here. Invest here. Let your ambition be not to possess the world, but to face it with unshakable light. Consider the hourglass whose entire existence depends on scarcity. Each grain must fall for the next to find purpose. So too with human longing. Our culture teaches us to hoard sand rather than read the inscriptions carved into the glass itself. I once met a woman in Mumbai's monsoon-drenched streets who carried her entire worldly possessions in a cotton bundle, yet sang Vedic hymns to the rain with the abandon of a child. The water plastered her thin sari to skin stretched over hunger, but her voice held the unshakable timbre of royalty. Beside her, a businessman in a flooded Mercedes screamed into his phone about delayed fortunes, his Italian leather shoes rotting in the acidic floodwaters. Both were drenched. Only one was free. There's a particular scent to desperation masked as ambition, the sharp tang of perspiration clinging to silk shirts in boardrooms, the formaldehyde undertones of cosmetic procedures chasing eternal youth. We've built cathedrals to this desperation, sprawling gyms where souls atrophy while muscles swell, dating apps that commodify intimacy into swipes, universities charging lifelong debt for credentials that cannot teach how to die with dignity. The Stoic asks not how to escape these systems, but how to walk through them without letting their miasma seep into the marrow. Like Seneca writing moral epistles from the steam rooms of Nero's court, we too can cultivate an inner citadel amid the carnival of lack. Observe children on any playground to witness the pure mechanics of desire. A toddler abandons a toy the moment she obtains it, already twisting toward the next bright object. Modern advertising didn't invent this reflex, it merely weaponized it. The true Stoic disruption lies in reversing the gaze, not toward the next want, but into the present moment's plenitude. When last did you stare at a winter oak's bare branches until their fractal patterns burned themselves into your retinas, or notice how your morning breath fogs the window in arabesques as intricate as cathedral rose windows? Epictetus, born a slave, found more freedom in a single disciplined thought than most discover in lifetimes of material gain. We've conflated security with accumulation when true safety resides in our capacity to relinquish. The Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold lacquer, holds the Stoic secret. Breakage becomes beauty when embraced rather than hidden. I learned this through bankruptcy, through divorce, through nights when my body shook with losses no insurance policy could mitigate. Yet in that stripping away, I discovered the paradoxical grammar of resilience, that verbs like endure and persist gain their power from silent antecedents like release and accept. A tree's strength comes not from resisting the storm, but from knowing which branches to surrender. The cult of productivity would have us measure our days in outputs, emails sent, deals closed, steps counted. But what of the unquantifiable moments that actually shape a soul? The minute you spent memorizing your lover's sleeping, faced the morning before the funeral. The hour you cradled a dying stray dog as twilight painted its last breaths in vermilion. Marcus Aurelius never documented these in his imperial logs, yet they pulse through the meditations like underground rivers. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Modernity's great lie is that convenience equals progress. We've eliminated physical distances only to widen spiritual chasms. The same hands that can summon a hot meal or a lover with a thumb swipe grow incapable of stitching a wound, kneading bread, or tracing a loved one's spine in the dark. True wealth, the Stoics remind us, resides in retained capabilities to mend rather than replace, to savor rather than consume, to repair trust rather than cancel connections. I've seen more nobility in a cobbler's resin-stained hands resurrecting worn souls than in any billionaire's yacht. Consider fire. It requires emptiness to exist. Without oxygen, without space between logs, it suffocates under its own fuel. Our souls function similarly. We cram our schedules, our homes, our minds with the trivial until the sacred cannot breathe. The Stoic art of subtraction isn't austerity, it's making space for combustion. When Alexander wept at having no more worlds to conquer, he was mourning not the lack of territories, but the absence of emptiness into which his spirit could expand. The fisherman mending nets understands this his day contains pockets of silence where the divine slips in on tidewater whispers. There's a reason all great spiritual traditions emerge from wilderness. The desert fathers, the forest-dwelling Buddha, Christ's 40 days in barren lands, they understood that stripping away the artificial reveals fundamental truths. Modern Stoics need not retreat to caves, but must create mental tundras, digital Sabbaths where notifications don't breed anxiety, conversations unmeasured by minutes, walks where the destination matters less than the rhythm of breath. In these spaces, we rediscover the body's ancient wisdom, how the heart calibrates itself to sunrises rather than stock openings, how the lungs sink to ocean tides rather than productivity quotas. The pathology of comparison thrives in soil tilled by social media, but its roots reach back to Seneca's Rome. How many are slaves to others' slavery? He observed at Nero's parties, where patricians gorged on stuffed peacock tongues, while envying the poet reciting verses in the corner. Today's version plays out in Instagram, envy vacation photos breeding restlessness, filtered faces seeding self-loathing. The Stoic antidote lies not in deletion, but in recalibration, understanding that every highlight reel hides 100 unposted failures, that the man you envy for his Porsche envies your unburdened sleep. Wrath against injustice often masquerades as virtue, but the Stoic tempers it with cold reason. During the plague years, Marcus Aurelius didn't curse the gods. He established quarantine protocols and funded medical research. When protesters tear down statues, the disciplined mind asks, what systems will you build in their place? Anger is easy currency. The hard work lies in minting sustainable change. I've marched in streets thick with pepper spray and shouted until my voice frayed. But true transformation began when I channeled that fury into teaching literacy to inmates. Fire needs containment to forge. Left wild, it reduces everything to ash. We've been taught to venerate resilience, but rarely examine its source. The oak withstands hurricanes because its roots grip the earth. The reed survives by bending. Which are you? The answer changes based on the storm. After the miscarriage, I became reed, allowing grief to flow through me until it carved channels for compassion. When slandered by colleagues, I stood oak like roots deep in truth. Stoicism's gift is fluidity, the discernment to know when resistance becomes hubris, when adaptability veers into compromise. No philosophy textbook teaches this balance. It's learned through monsoons that drench the theoretical, until only the practical remains. Luxury's greatest cruelty is insulation from life's textures. The billionaire's climate-controlled penthouse denies him the primal thrill of rain on skin. Noise-canceling headphones erase the street musician's area. Contrast this with Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz, finding meaning in sharing bread crusts, or Epictetus finding freedom in physical lameness. I may be lame, but let me not be lame in my purpose. Deprivation, when met with conscious acceptance, becomes the whetstone for appreciation. I've watched terminal patients find ecstasy in ice chips, while the healthy guzzle champagne without tasting it. The cult of legacy torments more souls than death itself. We erect monuments, pen memoirs, spawn dynasties, all attempts to etch our names in water. The Stoic asks better to be remembered or to be present. On his deathbed, my mentor whispered not of prizes or publications, but of the afternoon we'd spent watching sparrows build a nest outside his office window. That, he rasped, was a life well spent. Now, when I'm tempted by vanity projects, I hear his phlegmatic laugh. Will this matter to the sparrows? Modern neuroscience confirms what Zeno knew: our brains can't distinguish between ambition and anxiety. Both trigger the same cortisol surges, the same neural loops. The difference lies in orientation, the former fixated on an imagined future, the latter anchored in the now. I've interviewed Olympic athletes and Zen monks, discovering their training converges in unexpected ways. Both embrace brutal discipline. Both find transcendence in repetition. Both understand that the reward isn't the medal or enlightenment, but the self forged in the crucible of practice. We've turned happiness into an industry, but joy thrives in unmonetized spaces. The illegal street artist's midnight mural, the grandmother's undocumented dumpling recipe, the unpaid hospice volunteer's last vigil, these are the economy's dark matter, sustaining what GDP cannot measure. The Stoic recognizes that the most precious transactions leave no paper trail. A glance between old lovers across a subway car, a soldier sharing cigarettes with his enemy, the unspoken forgiveness when hands brush over a grave. Technology promised connection but delivered curation. Relationships reduced to mutual performance reviews. The Stoic remedy. Analog courage, eye contact held past discomfort, handwritten letters that risk sincerity, silence shared without urgency. In Kyoto's Ryoanji Temple, the famous rock garden's 15 stones can never all be seen at once, a lesson in perspective. So too with human connection, we must accept that full comprehension is impossible, yet still tend the garden. Finally, the ultimate Stoic wealth, mortality awareness. Not as morbid fixation, but as clarifying lens. The memento mori isn't about death's inevitability, but life's urgency. Each birthday candle, each gray hair, each fading photograph asks, are you trading days for what matters? I've sat with too many final breaths to pretend otherwise. The CEO's last words weren't of mergers, but of his daughter's forgotten recital. The nun's final smile spoke of sunlit laundry days. This is the Stoic's true inheritance, not a vault of gold, but a well of moments drawn deeply and generously until the cup overflows. Consider the symphony conductor who mistakes the audience's applause for the music itself, tirelessly chasing standing ovations while the orchestra grows hollow. So many of us spend our lives composing external validations, deaf to the dissonance between our curated personas and the silent hunger beneath. I recall a night in Marrakech's moonlit sucks, where a blind potter shaped clay with hands that rid the wheel's vibrations like braille. His workshop, cracked walls lit by a single bulb, held more authenticity than 100 corporate boardrooms. The clay doesn't care about your titles, he remarked, fingers etching ancient Berber patterns into a vase. It responds only to pressure and release, presence and patience. In his words lay the essence of Stoic practice, engagement stripped of pretense, creation divorced from craving. Modern ambition thrives on the myth of permanence. We build steel skyscrapers as if they'll outlast the stars, draft 5-year plans while ignoring the tremor in our aging parents' hands. The Stoic knows all endeavors are sandcastles, not futile, but beautiful precisely because they're ephemeral. Watch a child pour herself into a driftwood fortress, only to laugh when the tide claims it. There's wisdom in her surrender. The Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, finding beauty in imperfection and transience, aligns with Seneca's admonition that life's length matters less than its depth. I learned this during chemotherapy, when the vulnerability of a bald scalp became liberation from vanity, when the scent of hospital disinfectant somehow sharpened my appreciation for jasmine blooming outside the ward. Our digital age has birthed a new species of poverty, attention fragmented into shards, thoughts reduced to hashtags. The Stoic antidote lies not in renunciation, but in ruthless prioritization. Picture a master vintner tasting wine, swirling, sipping, spitting. He doesn't swallow every vintage, no matter how prestigious. So too with information, the disciplined mind samples ideas, retains only what nourishes, rejects the intoxicating but empty. A Wall Street trader once confessed to me his morning ritual. 3 hours scanning markets before sunrise. What if you spent one of those hours studying Marcus Aurelius? I asked. His laughter was nervous, edged with fear. The most valuable portfolio we curate isn't financial, but cognitive. What we feed the ravenous mind determines whether it becomes ally or tyrant. Luxury's most insidious lie is that comfort equates to living. Observe the wealthy expatriate in Bali, sipping kombucha while locals haul fishing nets through dawn's silver surf. Who truly tastes life? Comfort anesthetizes, controlled discomfort awakens. The Spartanagoge trained youths through hunger and exposure, forging resilience no gilded cage can replicate. Modern equivalents exist: the entrepreneur who meditates in ice baths, the artist who paints through heartbreak. I once met a veteran who summited Everest without oxygen, not for glory, but to rediscover the clarity found at survival's edge. His words still resonate. Up there, all that matters is your next breath. The rest is baggage you should have left at base camp. We've been conditioned to view time as currency. Spend, save, invest. The Stoic reimagines time as soil. Each moment planted with intention yields compound interest in character. A Harlem schoolteacher demonstrated this, turning cracked sidewalks into history lessons. This corner. Langston Hughes bought his first typewriter there. That fire escape. James Baldwin wrote notes for Go Tell It on the Mountain, while smoking on one just like it. Her students, told they were poor, discovered they stood atop ancestral wealth no hedge fund could replicate. Similarly, Epictetus transformed his lameness into leverage. A weakness made him invincible by removing dependence on physical prowess. The pathology of more distorts even our virtues. Philanthropy becomes performance, relationships transactional, spirituality another self-help hack. True giving, as the Stoics conceived it, is anonymous, like rain nourishing earth without demanding gratitude. In Cairo's backstreets, I witnessed a bread merchant leave fresh loaves at doorsteps each Friday. When I asked why no recognition, he quoted an Arab proverb, "God sees the mouse in the dark." This echoes Marcus Aurelius' journaling. Private reflections never intended for publication. Virtue's purest form is that which expects no witness, no return, no memorial. Consider the paradox of hoarding wisdom. Libraries overflow with unread philosophy texts, while illiterate grandmothers dispense life's deepest truths through folk sayings. The Stoic recognizes that knowledge unapplied is dead weight. Better to carry 3 practiced principles than 1,000 memorized quotes. A Tibetan monk once silenced a conference hall by responding to a convoluted ethics question with "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." Initially dismissed as simplistic, his answer grew profound upon reflection. Mastery lies not in complexity, but in consistent alignment with nature's rhythms. Modern relationships often mirror dysfunctional capitalism, love treated as scarce resource, affection as transactional exchange. The Stoic approach, modeled by Zeno's concept of cosmic sympathy, teaches that human bonds thrive through mutual elevation rather than need. Picture 2 climbers tethered on a glacier. The rope isn't dependency, but shared commitment to summiting. My grandparents' marriage exemplified this. 60 years spent not gazing starry-eyed, but facing the same direction. Weathering wars, raising children, bearing a son. Their secret? We chose daily. My grandmother said, not just once at the altar. The cult of innovation forgets that some truths withstand millennia. Algorithms change, human nature doesn't. Instagram influencers peddle life hacks. Socrates debated in Athenian agora. A tech CEO's quest for immortality through cryogenesis mirrors Chun Shi Huang's elixir obsession. The Stoic remains unswayed, knowing true progress is internal, upgrading empathy, debugging prejudices, firewalling integrity against corruption. Diogenes carried a lamp, searching for an honest man. Today he'd wander Silicon Valley, Tokyo's Akihabara, Dubai's gold soaks, finding the same human struggles beneath digital veneers. Nature remains philosophy's greatest professor. A hurricane strips islands to their bones, revealing what structures hold. Forest fires purge deadwood, enabling sequoia seeds to sprout. The Stoic learns from this. Periodic self-examination to burn away accumulated falsehoods. A Pacific Islander taught me this through spear fishing. You must become still as coral, patient as tide. The fish come when they sense no desperation. His words apply equally to cultivating inner wealth. Chase nothing. Prepare everything. Receive what comes with gratitude. Legacy is a mirror that distorts. We polish our projected image while true impact happens in peripheral vision. The student you encourage now teaching others, the kindness chain begun with a coffee shop tip. Hadrian's wall crumbles, but a stranger's compassionate lee. Your hair looks nice today. Echoes through a suicidal teen's lifetime. The Stoic measures influence not in monuments, but in multiplied virtues. Like ripples from a pebble thrown in childhood, our best deeds surface in distant shores we'll never walk. Finally, the ultimate Stoic wealth becoming what you are. Not chasing Instagram archetypes or parental expectations, but owning innate potential like a sculptor freeing forms trapped in marble. A jazz trumpeter once described his life's work. I don't create music. I remove the noise hiding the music that's always existed. So too with self-actualization. The billionaire weeping in his penthouse mourns not lost fortune, but his abandoned self. the artist he could have been, the teacher, the father present at bedtime. Stoicism's crowning insight, poverty of spirit, comes from trading your essence for effigies, your song for applause. True abundance. Waking daily to say, this life, here now, I'll inhabit it unrehearsed. The rest is commentary. Consider the weaver at her loom, fingers dancing between warp and weft. Each thread a choice, tighten here, loosen there, the pattern emerging not through force, but through patient dialogue with tension. Modern life would have us believe we're the shuttle, hurrying mindlessly across the frame. The Stoic knows we're the weaver, though most have forgotten how to feel the threads. I witnessed this truth in a Kyoto silk atelier, where octogenarian artisans spend decades perfecting a single brocade. The cloth already exists in the silk. One master explained, running a hand through raw filaments. My job is merely to remove what hides it. His words cut to the heart of Stoic practice. Our virtues aren't constructed, but excavated. There's a particular madness to modern abundance. Supermarkets where apples gleam with waxed perfection, yet taste of nothing. Closets overflowing with clothes that never touch skin. We've become curators of excess, mistaking possession for experience. Recall Seneca's warning. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor. I tested this during a week-long power outage after a hurricane. With the freezer thawing, I cooked a feast for neighbors over a propane stove, laughing as we ate ice cream in the dark, our faces lit by a single candle. The meal that followed canned beans and spoiled milk tasted richer than any Michelin-starred dinner. Deprivation, when shared, becomes communion. Ambition's shadow is haste. We sprint through milestones like tourists checking monuments off a list. Graduate, marry, promote, retire. Missing the frescoes hidden in alleyways. The Stoic art of delay proves revolutionary here. In the Swiss Alps, I met a watchmaker who takes 3 years to craft a single timepiece. Precision requires boredom, he said, filing a gear smaller than a sesame seed. You must love the process more than the applause. His workshop smelled of oil and aged wood, a rebuke to our disposable culture. Like Marcus Aurelius writing Meditations between battles, this man found eternity in infinitesimal increments. Technology's great irony, it connects us to everyone except ourselves. We document sunsets instead of feeling their warmth, translate awe into pixels. Ancient Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining worst-case scenarios to cultivate gratitude. Today we need premeditatio absentia, envisioning life without these devices that simultaneously extend and diminish us. A Silicon Valley executive taught me this by example. Every dawn, he walks barefoot in the dew-soaked grass behind his mansion. The Earth's firmware update, he calls it. For those 10 minutes, he's not a titan of industry but a mammal remembering touch. Observe how children interact with water, cupping hands beneath a fountain, stomping puddles into liquid fireworks. Adults install pools they never swim in, collect designer water bottles they never savor. The Stoic reclaims childhood's sacramental attention. During a drought in Rajasthan, I watched women balance brass pots on their heads for miles. Spilling a single drop meant another hour's walk. Yet at journey's end, they'd offer sips to strangers before drinking themselves. Contrast this with mineral water gulped from plastic between traffic lights. Hydration without honor, consumption without consecration. We've been conditioned to fear emptiness. Silent phones interpreted as rejection, unplanned hours as wasted potential. The Stoic reframes voids as vessels. Japanese Ma philosophy honors the space between objects. Buddhist monasteries use meditation halls, stripped of everything but breath. I discovered this while recovering from a vocal cord injury. 7 days mute in a Manhattan loft. Initially terrified, I soon noticed how conversations deepened when I couldn't interrupt, how friends' eyes betrayed truths their words masked. Silence became my mentor, teaching what Epictetus meant by, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen twice as much as we speak. The pathology of optimization infects even our leisure. Vacations become Instagram itineraries, hobbies become side hustles, sex becomes performance metrics. Stoicism's radical counter is odium sanctum, sacred idleness. In Normandy, I met a former CEO who now plants heirloom tomatoes. It took me 2 years to stop calculating ROI on sunlight. He admitted dirt under fingernails. His most prized plant. a misshapen brandy wine that produces one exquisite fruit per season. Perfection is the enemy of ripe. He smiled, offering me a slice that burst with flavors supermarkets eliminated for shelf life. Grief remains modernity's most exiled emotion. We medicate it, therapize it, drown it in work. Anything but let it teach. The Stoic approach, leaning into loss until it reveals its lessons, comes alive in Mexican Dia de Muertos rituals. Families build altars not to worship death, but to converse with absence. I helped a Oaxacan grandmother marigold petals for her husband's ofrenda. Loved mezcal and bad jokes. She chuckled, arranging his favorite bottle. The dead don't need our tears. They need us to live so vividly it tickles their bones. Her laughter carried Zeno's wisdom. We have two lives. The second begins when we realize we only have one. Modern education teaches competition, but nature thrives on symbiosis. Mycorrhizal fungi link forest roots into a wood-wide web, sharing nutrients between trees. The oldest cedars nourish saplings they'll never see. Stoic caesis, the concept of belonging to a cosmic community, demands similar generosity. A Detroit mechanic embodies this, training former inmates in his garage. Nobody helped me when I got out in '92. He told me elbow deep in a transmission. So now I fix men along with cars. His waiting list stretches years, yet he refuses to expand. Depth over breadth. He grins, quoting Marcus Aurelius without knowing it. Luxury's final poverty insulation from life's textures. Thermostats erase the thrill of spring's first warmth. Air filters hide the dangerous perfume of jasmine. Contrast this with Shackleton's crew huddled in Antarctic darkness, finding transcendence in a single sardine shared 18 ways. Or my Ukrainian grandmother's hands, scarred from Stalin's famines, yet still capable of turning potato peels into pierogi. Hunger seasons the appetite, she'd say, serving me portions larger than her own. Only now do I grasp her lesson: scarcity primes gratitude. Excess breeds entitlement. The cult of legacy fixates on lasting impressions, yet the sweetest moments are those that leave no trace. A shared joke swallowed by wind. A dance in a parking lot at 2 a.m. The weight of a sleeping child's trust. Stoicism's a more fatty applies here, loving what vanishes. Japanese mono no aware. The pathos of impermanence. Teaches that cherry blossoms' beauty peaks as they begin to fall. I learned this caring for a dementia patient who forgot entire decades, yet retained the lyrics to every Sinatra song. Her final coherent words. It's all still there, just misplaced. Modern productivity preaches multitasking. Stoic focus demands unitasking. Watch a falcon hunt. No secondary agendas, no existential doubts. Its entire being funnels into the strike. A neuroscientist friend studies flow state in free climbers and concert pianists. Their brain scans look like Buddhist monks, he reports. Total activation, zero resistance. The Stoic parallel. Seneca's, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for courage. Not the courage of heroics, but of undivided attention. To the spreadsheet, the diaper change, the twilight settling on a tired face. We've commercialized spirituality. Apps selling enlightenment. Gurus auctioning mantras. True practice hides in plain sight. A Queens laundromat owner leaves detergent-free machines for the poor. Clean clothes shouldn't be a luxury, she shrugs, refusing interviews. Her unmarked charity embodies Clinth's water clock. Doing good without tracking the drips. When asked why, she cites her Haitian mother. God sees the mouse, but the mouse must still act. The climate change makes Stoicism urgent. If nature is our shared reason logos, ecological destruction becomes self-mutilation. Indigenous wisdom aligns here. The Menk Ori concept of Katiakatangas. Guardianship mirrors Marcus Aurelius. What's bad for the hive is bad for the bee. I joined Pacific Islanders replanting mangroves as cyclones intensified. These roots break waves and carbon. Their chief said, knee-deep in rising tides. His people lose homes but not purpose. We're the reef teaching the storm about persistence. Finally, the Stoics' ultimate wealth mortality's lens. Not as morbid fixation, but as life's focusing force. Hospice workers report the dying never reminisce about all-nighters or stock options. Their regrets orbit unlived lives, sunsets unwitnessed, loves unspoken, selves unexplored. A palliative nurse shared her most frequent deathbed confession. I wish I'd failed more. Behind this lies profound insight: our obsession with winning distracts from participating. The carpenter's chisel only shapes wood through repeated strikes. Our character forms similarly through attempts, not trophies. So let us measure wealth in what can't be appraised. The courage to weep openly, the strength to forgive preemptively, the discipline to hope against evidence. When markets crash and accolades fade, these remain. The billionaire's error isn't his fortune, but believing it exempts him from life's common curriculum. Rain soaks rich and poor alike. Wisdom lies in lifting one's face to the storm. As the Stoic farmer tending barren fields knows, sometimes the richest harvests grow from seasons when all you reap is resilience.